Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Edwin Garcia, and today I want to talk about 80s music and the fact that it's still rising in popularity in 2019. How unbelievable is that? So let's get right into it. So I thought about this topic a few weeks ago when I was watching Stranger Things, the trailers for Stranger Things. Stranger Things, as many of you know, is a very popular show on Netflix that it takes place in the 80s, and because of that, it's set in 1980s America, and there's a lot of nostalgia, and it's in current events in the show, but for us, it's a throwback because we're watching it live in 2019. And I started thinking about Stranger Things and the fact that it's so popular, and people are really digging the nostalgic vibes of the show, and I started thinking, why is this such a big thing? Why is 80s music and 80s just have such a strong resurgence, and why is it still popular despite the fact that 1980 in a couple months will be 40 years ago? So how is it still so popular? So I thought I wanted to kind of dig into that, especially on the music aspect, and kind of work through it. So let's begin. Let's have some fun. So if you were, let's say, 10 years old in 1980, that means that you're getting close to 50. So you're definitely an adult, definitely grown, but you're still at an age where you're probably still working, you're making a good amount of income, hopefully, knock on wood, fingers crossed, and you have a lot of nostalgia for that because you were probably in your preteens or a teenager during the 80s. If you're around that 50, that 48 to 62 range or so, you're probably around that. And for a lot of people, they're always nostalgic for their teenage years, or it's the last time you were a quote-unquote kid, and you have good memories of just a simpler life in simpler times. And now that you're a fully grown adult, maturing into your senior years, your golden years, I imagine that there'd be a lot of nostalgia for that time. And with little extra income, you're probably doing things like buying records, like building up your CD collection, building up your 80s playlist collection, and sharing that passion with your significant others and with family and friends, including family that's younger, because as you get older, that younger generation gets bigger and bigger. So I think that's one of the main reasons, is that the people from the 80s, it's like they never left. Like my dad, he's around that age, and the 80s were his golden years, and he loves that stuff. He's still playing it to this day. He's rocking his 80s music. He's listening to Madonna and Queen and Elton John and Blondie and Diana Ross, and he listens to that like it just came out yesterday, and he digs it, and he never stopped digging it. So for people from that generation, they've just kind of kept it going. But that's not enough for it to be a pop culture thing. That's enough for, people of that age, but how come it's trickled down? So the reason it's trickled down, I think, is again, mainly through that generation, but then the next one's attached to it. Like, for example, myself, I am obviously my father's son, and when I was growing up during the 90s, I still felt like the 80s were such a big, strong part of my life because my dad would play the 80s music nonstop. He never stopped playing it. This is an old story. You're going to tell by my next couple sentences here, but he would read his newspaper and play 80s music nonstop on loop in our basement for hours. Like, as soon as he got home, open up his newspaper, read through it, and he just blasts 80s music. And I was usually sitting around there, so whether I wanted to or not, I consumed like hundreds of hours of 80s music, whether that was in the house, in the car, it was always playing. My 90s music was not allowed, so it was just 80s all the time. So because of that, I kind of hated the 80s music at first, 'cause I'm like, if I hear, another Phil Collins song, I'm gonna lose it. But as I've gotten older, and I also had a chance to take a break from that, you do get a little nostalgia, because it reminds me of those moments, a simpler time when I was 9, 8, 7, in my 90s, my dad just playing 80s music nonstop, and that helped create nostalgia for me. So when I see shows and movies now use it, it kind of does pull at my heartstrings a little bit, and reminds me of a simpler time for myself. The same way for my dad, it reminds him of his roaring 20s. It reminds me of my early teenage years, my young years, my years before I was an adult, because since my dad was playing it for me, I consumed it too. So that means that at this point, the people who are around that 50-year range, they have massive nostalgia, because for them is their golden years. And the people at the 30-year or so mark have nostalgia because those parents played it for them. And an interesting thing I've noticed is even the generation underneath, literally people now who are like 10, 12, 15, they like 80s music. And their reason's a little bit interesting. I've noticed that one, either that 50-year-old parent had a couple kids, so the younger ones still have to listen to it, or that teenager, person my age, decided to play it once their parent, taught them about the 80s music, and then it trickled down that way. Or I've noticed a lot of them have picked up on it because it's something that is accepted. No one really, with, hip hop and urban music that's easily the most popular genre right now. It still has a lot of explicit lyrics. There's still people who are not comfortable with it, or parents who are not going to be okay with a 9-year-old playing an explicit version of a Nas record. They're just not. It's not cool, and it's not going to be allowed and tolerated. While 80s music, there's dramatically less explicit version of music with explicit lyrics, and there's a lot of popular music that has none of that at all, especially in the 80s. It allows younger people to play that music and not have to worry about parents getting upset or mad or angry or anything like that. It's like non-controversial. Not all 80s music, of course, but I'm talking about the Elton Johns, the Madonnas, the Blondie. That music's fine. It doesn't have explicit lyrics, and overall people aren't going to be upset with it. So it kind of gives them permission that, hey, I can play this. That's accepted. I'm sure they're listening to a lot of other things as well, obviously, in the modern era, but it allows them to get that whole generation, that whole decade, and play that music and appreciate it without fear of some kind of backlash. And I've noticed that too. I have several family members and friends who are teachers and in classrooms, and they mention in classrooms those kids asked for the teachers to play that music. A lot of teachers now, they're okay with playing background music when students are reading or studying, or it's kind of a quiet time or something like that. And 80s music is an easy solution for the same reason. The kids want to hear the music. They're okay with it. There's no explicit lyrics, so you don't have to worry about, someone getting mad or someone getting in trouble. And it's kind of a safe decade of music that you can play, from Pandora. And everyone's kind of having a good time. And because of that, because of the non-explicit heavy music, it's also become a huge celebration of 80s music in TV, in sporting events, in advertisement, and in movies. Because you don't have the explicit lyrics to worry about, it's easy to play that music still at a retail store. It's easy to play it as background, really quiet in a restaurant, elevators, office spaces. It's pretty much just kind of generally accepted. Now, that really gives it an advantage because it keeps it relevant, because it's not being replaced with as much 90s music, as much early 2000s music, because of the explicit lyrics, because some people aren't going to be comfortable, and especially for corporations like that, sometimes you just want to get something that's safe. And Madonna's not really going to offend anybody, so it's totally fine, and it's going to be more accepted than, like I said, playing a Wu-Tang album at a Walgreens is just not going to happen. I don't know, hopefully one day it does. I think that'd be interesting, but right now they're not going to do that. They're going to be playing, Everybody's Working for the Weekend and songs like that, and they're going to be playing a lot of 80s music, 70s music as well, of course. It's not a rule or anything, but it's, I think, the most popular decade in quite some time style of music, 80s music. And for that reason, also because of the nostalgia, because the younger people are also still attaching to it, you're seeing shows embrace that and really dive deep into it. Like I mentioned, Stranger Things, so much 80s nostalgia in the show, in the details of the show, the rise of America in the 80s and what that meant and what that looked like. It's so fascinating seeing it in the show. And Black Mirror did a special called Bandersnatch, where it was all set in that time, and they went nostalgic with the video games and vinyl records and the music especially as well. And they went to a record store in the show. I won't spoil too much because obviously I want people to watch it. It was very fun. It's an interactive experience on Netflix, and those kinds of things continue to reinforce that, the 80s are cool. The 80s music is something to check out, something to listen to, because you keep seeing it in a new light on film, on TV, in commercials. And finally, one of the biggest ones, Guardians of the Galaxy. very, very popular Marvel movie, 2 Marvel movies. It's a comic book, of course, as well, but I'm thinking of the Marvel movies because they did nothing but 80s music on both of the soundtracks, and people loved it. People gushed about how good the soundtrack was, how good the music was, how much it fit the style and attitude, and how much it was embraced and loved. And all of that is because of that establishment of the people who came from the 80s, and it's trickled down all the way to, people as young as 8, 9, 10 years old still having a connection to the 80s music. So yeah, thank you for checking out the video. Hopefully that kind of solves that. It's kind of helped me solve the mystery of why is the 80s still popular, and then another reason why the 90s and 2000s isn't as popular as maybe it could have been, because of the explicit lyrics, and maybe we need another decade or so to see if that will actually, we'll see more 90s and 2000s music kind of accepted even more in the mainstream. But for right now, I think 80s is king. I think it's had the longest run. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. And again, especially because hip hop took over, and that's more, and it's an urban genre, and it has explicit lyrics. It means that it's harder to be radio friendly. It's harder to be accepted by bigger corporations, and because more artists want to be rappers and hip-hop producers and all that, it means we're getting less of the 80s music style because it's not fiscally very beneficial to a new artist. It's old music that's just being continuing on. So even if you're a new musician, you're probably not looking to start a cover band of that or start music in that style, because in general that's not the most popular thing. If you look at the Billboard 100, it's mainly hip-hop. So we're not getting any more of that style of music, and people like what's there, and they're reusing it and finding new ways to put it in a new and interesting light. And yeah, those are some of the reasons why 80s music is still rising in popularity, still very popular, still very strong, and I don't see anything stopping it. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you have any other ideas? Why is that decade of music still so popular? I'd love to see some comments about it, and what you guys think. Maybe I missed some things that you think are really big factors in the continuing growth and strength of the 80s music and its popularity. Any other shows or movies or examples you have that you think would be really interesting for people to check out, go ahead, just leave me a comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to as many, or if not every single one of them. And yeah, give me some bands too. I'm always looking to add to my 80s music playlist. I have one on Spotify called Dad Has the Aux, where anytime I hear 80s music, I either put it in the Spotify playlist or I Shazam it and then put it in my Spotify playlist. So if you have some songs you think are so 80s that should be on every playlist, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to add it. I'll probably share a link with my Spotify playlist as well, so anyone can check it out and see what I'm missing and what should be on there. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll talk to you guys on the next video. All right, later.